It is now 7:45 and I am calling this meeting to order. We have on the Zoom um, Michael Silliman, our village manager, Arthur Alexander, council chair, who is also a candidate, Alexa Spencer, our council liaison, and Elizabeth Goldberg, Mike Zielinski, Jack Swain, and myself. So ready to rock and roll. Does everyone have the agenda in front of you?
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
pulling up my copy here. Okay. And Mike Silliman, thank you for being our Zoom person. Okay, administrative items. First item is to approve the minutes from the April committee meeting. And again, Elizabeth, thank you for the thorough, careful work that you
Mhm.
do on that.
You're
Are there any
welcome.
amendments to the minutes? No amendments?
Not for
Have a
me.
motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, unanimously approved. And again, thank you, Elizabeth. In terms of
Mhm.
the election schedule, we're on schedule. We fortunately, I think, we're smart enough this year as a committee to build in some time between the mailing of the ballot packets to our residents and the actual due date. And so this election delay, while fairly serious and substantial, has not, in fact, totally derailed the election at all. And I think that's a lesson for future committees to similarly build in some planning time for potential delays. The post office has not been getting better. If they get worse in the future, we may need to build even more time. But other than that, the election work to date, I think, has been going really, really well. Other perceptions, comments, thoughts about how, you know? Yes, Mike?
Yep. I don't have any. Nothing to add.
Okay. You could say good stuff too. And Jack, again, I want to thank you for all the work you're doing here too, in terms of just all the technical work. Were you able to take a look at the tracking, the postal tracking on the return ballots? Is that something you and Mike Z were doing? Is that something that's
I
in
haven't
hand?
looked. I haven't looked since I checked when troubleshooting the ballot delays.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Okay.
doing some looking earlier, but I didn't see a lot of emails pertinent to this year. There were a lot of mixed in with 2025 stuff. The newer stuff, there wasn't that many entries. There were probably, I don't know, 20, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly things that were started, first entry was May 2nd. So these are
Mm-hmm.
people that got ballots late last week, like Judy and I did. We mailed ours on Saturday morning. The schedule, the tickler on the tracking said it was in New Jersey on Sunday, the 3rd. So moving, but they hadn't been delivered yet. So there were a bunch of them like that. But I assume that as these late arrival things are being, actually filled out and mailed, there'll be a lot more entries. It's pretty easy to sort because you can just click on the subject matter and it'll sort them by number. But the problem is they don't have like seriatim numbers. That's one thing we need to talk to them about. I mean, my number was 158825. My wife's was 194690. So they've got a bunch of, that's why the old numbers were all mixed in there from 2025. Those are numbers that are sort of interspersed between things that we've got to name. They ought to have a,
Mhm.
Right, right. One of the things to do is do initial sort by date so
yeah.
that you don't get the 25 stuff in there.
Oh,
And then sort of, and the reason that the numbers are not in sequence is a voting privacy rule, which
okay.
is that we don't want everybody to know that ballot 001 is the first person on the voter roll and 002 is the second person. That is a violation of voter privacy. So the contractor, and in fact, when we did this manually back in the days in BMA before we were doing mail voting like this, we always put the numbers in random order, six-digit number. I used to have to generate six-digit
Oh,
random
okay.
numbers
All right.
on before Chat GPT even. I used to use a random number generator for that. But that's for voter privacy. And you're right, you sort on the current ballot number, and you can first set aside everything from 2025 and just look at the 2026 ballots. But thank you for diving into that.
I'll try to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, and not all 600 39 voters or 41 voters are going to send their ballots in. So you're not going to have 600 of these. I'll be happy if we have a turnout of 3 to 400. That's considered a good turnout.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
as long as you can sort them, to see that anything that shows up in the system as having entered the system from a VMA voter, did it in fact get delivered to Electek in New Jersey? It's a yes or no question. Did it make it to the end? And it doesn't matter whether it has 2 stops or 4 stops or 14 stops in between. Question is, if a voter mailed it, if it got into the system, did it in fact arrive?
We
And
don't have the universe of numbers they sent out, though, do we?
no, they have it, and if we
Right.
needed it for some reason, we could probably get it. But they had assigned 641 random 6-digit numbers
Yeah,
to our
right.
641 voters. Other questions about that or thoughts on that? Okay. Here's Nomi joining us. Thank you, Nomi. Um, One question I have is in terms of sort of next election work while we're here and just administrative items. I had a thought suggested by a neighbor, actually it wasn't my thought, that we should put a note on the listserv tomorrow, Tuesday, from the committee. There will be another official notice of the celebration on the sidewalk and all of that good stuff. From Michael tomorrow, right? Michael Silliman, is that right? You're going to post another notice tomorrow about the sidewalk celebration?
Yes, I think one went out today, if I
Yep.
Yeah.
remember correctly, and then I was hoping to send a text message, but I seem to have gotten locked out of the text message tool. So I'm either going to reset that password and send out a quick note there to remind people to come, or I'll send a separate standalone. Yeah,
I think please do a standalone if you would as well.
sure.
Deo standalones, and then good luck with the tech stuff. That's outside my wheelhouse, so I'll just say good luck with that.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know how productive that tool is, anyways. So I'm reconsidering my. It's been frustrating, but yeah, we'll persevere.
Thank you as always. Thank you as always. And committee members, what
Excuse
about us?
me,
Yes,
you said putting a note on the listserv. Do you mean the community listserv?
yes, the community listserv. Not. I mean, that was I was checking with Michael. That'd be something official from the village tomorrow
Right.
on the village email. But my question to the committee right now, in terms of
Uh-huh.
just election work, is
Right.
should we put a follow-up? We put a brief note on the listserv earlier in the process,
Right.
and a lot of people seem to see that.
Yeah, I
So,
don't think it hurts at all to do that. I think it would be I'd be in favor of doing that.
okay. Nomi, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. The more the better.
Okay, and Mike
Yeah.
and Jack, you
Yep.
okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and put a yes on that. Voted to put something on the listserv. I will basically post something similar to what we already have approved. Anything else in terms of our review of the election work to date? Okay, and let's see. We have no residents on the meeting call tonight, so it's just us. Okay. Um, Moving on to action items. Review of the election forum. My only comment is way to go, team. I thought you all were just so clear and so professional and so even-handed and objective and just great job, Elizabeth and Mike Z. I think you're wonderful. And Nomi, you as well. I know you didn't have a whole lot of work to do because there weren't a whole lot of questions coming in on the chat, but the three of you having you on camera, you look good. What did you think, Jack?
I thought everyone did a great job.
Yeah, yeah.
Committee candidates, it was a great event.
I think it was also I'm hearing from residents now who have been watching it on the recording and Michael Silliman, thank you for putting the video recording up, not just the audio. That really makes a difference to people, so we appreciate that. And people have been watching the video and calling me, and I of course am being very good about our committee rule, which is we do not comment on the candidates. No comments pro or con. We tell people to read the materials, watch the forum, and make their own decisions. Period. Right? We're all being very careful about that, I know, because our neutrality does matter and really does matter. But people are saying that they found it very illuminating, that the forum really showed the differences in approach and personalities and perspectives, and that it really differentiated amongst the candidates
Yeah.
for them quite well, that they really got a sense of who the candidates were. And so that to me is the ultimate mark of success, is that when residents and voters say, oh, I really got a good sense of who these people are and how they think
Mhm.
about things. So I commend you for that, because that's the real goal, is information, not just for the candidates to be able to present themselves, but for the voters to be able to see who to elect, their choice. So kudos.
Right.
If you have any comments on the forum or any other election stuff, election committee members, and actually everyone here on the Zoom, any suggestions for things we might do differently or better next year, start jotting them down now, because next month in June, we'll do our final wrap-up report. And that's when we look at, any recommendations for next year's committee about things to just, that could be improved this year. I don't know of many, but if there are some, now's the time to start jotting down your notes. So, committee members, that's a homework assignment, if you would. Okay?
Marty, can I mention one thing here?
Sure.
And sorry, I'm watering my garden as I'm on this meeting, so I'm staying off video. But and it seems like a siren's coming by every time I unmute myself. But
Okay.
I just wanted to mention the comment, the chat box really isn't great on Zoom,
Right.
and it's not totally clear for people who they're messaging. And I think if we do that again, where we take live questions, we could either ask people to come off mute and ask the question that way, or we could have one person only with the
With the chat, yeah.
with the admin credentials that knows how it works and everything, and maybe test run that next time.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I did not realize that my chat entry was going to be seen by everybody.
Yeah,
Fortunately, there were no names in mind, and they were relatively mild. But yeah, that is definitely an improvement we should put on the list for next year, is to manage the chat function. I do think it's important for people to ask questions with privacy on the chat, so they don't necessarily have to reveal themselves. The Martin's Editions tradition has always been, when we used to do this in person before we had any electronics on it. We passed a basket around the office. You'd have 50 or 60 people in the village office, and people would write their questions on a 3x5 card. And so the questions were always anonymous, and they just put their card in the basket that got passed around. And then the election committee would sort through the cards and read the questions out loud to the candidates. So that privacy function is really quite central in VMA's process here, and always has been as far back as 40 years ago. So that is a reason not to have people have to give their names to ask a question publicly. But the chat function does allow some privacy, provided that not everybody can see who's on the chat, right? So that's an important function. A good point for Nick.
I almost wonder if there was a separate tool that we could use at the same time, like a little Survey Monkey, where people could submit their questions in live time versus using the admin feature of the chat, because there was a question that came in directly to me, which they had the ability to do, to message one of the admins instead of all of the admins. And it wasn't a question for the moderators. It was a question about the Zoom feature itself. So that's a little confusing for the participants as well. So we can just make notes and rethink
see
that
for next year. And again, if you have a spare nanosecond sometime in the next year, that would be a good thing to find out, if how you could tie in community questions without putting them on a chat that's visible to everybody. Yeah,
I think we ought to. I have concerns about the way the questions come in, and it's very important, obviously, for people to be able to raise issues and ask the candidates what their views are on issues that are important to them. But there's somehow I would like to discourage the idea that we're going to verbatim ask a question that somebody poses. Say you pose a topic. And I think we ought to have a deadline for submitting this stuff, so that we're not getting questions on the eve of the forum. And I think we ought to discourage chat questions. I mean, or at least tell people that if they can submit things like that, but that we're not necessarily going to be able to fit them in, because I mean, we can get deluged with things that and people. Well, you didn't ask my question, but I just don't want to create those expectations that we're, if you write something, we'll ask it.
Right.
We sort of do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, one of the early takes on the whole questions for the forum was to make sure that the community felt that they were being heard.
Of course.
And so the committee, back again, I'm going back in the old days, 10 years ago, 7 years ago. Um, we really did pretty much stick to the questions verbatim. What we did is combine them, right? So we would ask all the questions, like group them together.
Right.
But then there was the years intervening, like 21, 22, when it appeared that people's questions were not being, none of us were on the committee in those years, were not being read, that there were only these generic questions. So maybe nobody submitted questions, but people told me that they were
Mm.
submitting them and that they weren't, questions weren't being asked. And the criticism of the committee in those years, again, not us, we were not on it, none of us, was that the committee was taking it upon itself arrogantly to refuse to ask people's questions. It was
Right.
just asking these softball questions, and that wasn't fair to the residents. So yeah, it's a real issue, in terms of how you do this fairly for everybody. And again, next year's committee will tackle it again.
Yep.
It's a good point. It's a good
Food for
point.
thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also, I think I agree with Mike that because we did in the end join things based on the logic or the nature of the question to try to phrase it in the most meaningful way or to eliminate redundancy. And I was pleased. I thought that the result of those edits in the end conserved the nature of the question, but actually improved it, made it more comprehensible, more logical. And
Mhm.
so I, I think I would vote on the side of letting people know their questions are welcome, and then in the end, the moderators try to make them as good as possible, right?
I wouldn't want to
Well,
say that we ask questions better than our constituents, but yes,
well,
point taken, point
what
taken.
I'm
That
trying
we
to say
do.
is this in a comprehensible way, right?
Yeah,
That they're
exactly. As clear as possible and
yeah,
covering as many different issues and topics as possible
yeah,
is important. The one thing that we did this year that I thought was a really good innovation, one of many things we've done this year that I thought have been good, was we actually posted the list of questions right after the forum, which we didn't used to do. And I've
hmm
had a number of residents say that they really like being able to see the questions and have
sure,
that list in front of them when they went to watch the forum, that was a good thing. So
hmm
that's on my list of notes for next year, things to
Mhm.
change.
okay,
Yep.
You know,
Yep. Good
nice
idea.
innovation this year.
sure.
Anything else on the forum while we're at it? And again, I just thought you did a great job, and it's important for the community. Anything else from anybody? Okay. Yes, no, maybe. Well, I just want to send a committee resolution saying thank you to everybody who worked on the forum, which is all of us. So thank you to us. You all did a
Mhm.
great job. Thank you to you guys mostly. Um, and next thing is to deal with the postal delays. And I sent around late last night a little page and a half write-up of what we actually have been doing this year and would continue to do. And I'm hoping that we have some input from that. We were sort of going by basic, good administrative procedure. What do you do when this happens? But I realized that the process was not written up anywhere, and we ought to have a standard operating procedure for dealing with postal delays. Because Nomi sent me a thing about how the post office would probably continue to deteriorate because of what's going on politically at the national level. And she's right. So this is not necessarily a final document, but I did want to make sure that we all talked about what we're doing here. And if there's anything that we're not doing that we should do, to include that in this draft. We can adopt this tonight. We don't have to adopt it tonight. We have to basically handle the rest of the postal delays this year. And this is just a write-up of how one would do that. So
Right.
Jack, thank you for your comments. Mike, I know you had some comments. Elizabeth, you had some
Yeah,
comments
I've
too.
got a couple.
Okay.
You
All
want
right.
me to go ahead?
Yeah, why don't you start, Elizabeth? I'm going to
Okay.
put myself on the off the video so I can turn around and start writing notes here. So
All
I
right.
haven't gone away.
On point 3, where it says the ballot packet should arrive in VMA within 5 days, the contractor is not currently able to put postal tracking codes on the incoming ballot packets. Shouldn't it be the outgoing ballot packets? The ones
Ah,
that it's the ones they're sending, correct?
right. Incoming to us. This is
Well,
written from the village point of view.
well,
on the
You're
ballot.
saying the contractor, so the contractor is sending them out.
They're
to
incoming
me,
for us, outgoing for the
well, I know
contractor.
that, but the way the sentence is structured,
All
it
right,
seems more logical.
I'm going to strike the word incoming and put in the word on
What
the
if
ballot packets to VMA. That clears it
okay,
up.
that would do
Okay.
it.
Yep.
All right. And then the other one was on 4B,
Mhm.
notify the council EC liaison.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Good point.
And yeah, and on 7B, well, this was just the second part of that phrase. The contractor must cancel the original ballot and issue a new ballot number for each designated voter. I guess the question there was, I recall reading a message from Nikki that she wasn't sure what the process was in order to avoid a duplicate ballot.
Yeah, this has been the process all along since
Uh-huh.
2020, and she was just not sort of like focused on it. But yes,
Okay.
Nikki has had to do this on every replacement ballot we've done since we've been doing mail voting with Electech. So it's not a
Oh,
new procedure at all.
uh-huh.
She just, I don't know why she said she's on the road in Ohio for doing other elections this week, so she's been a
Yes.
little vague, but she has been very good about getting to their post office in Cinnaminson, New Jersey. I mean, she was very prompt about responding when the
Mhm.
issue of delays came up initially. But this process
So,
of canceling the original ballot number to issue a new ballot, in fact, it's in the regs. It's been in the regs since day one.
right.
Um,
So when tomorrow, when we find out, people who say as of yet tomorrow they have not received their ballot, presumably they're going to ask us to send a replacement, and
and
then you're going to send their name. Is that it? You
yeah,
send the name?
we send the list of the name and the address.
Uh, and the
Um,
address. Uh-huh.
Yeah, what we'll need to do, this is getting a little ahead, but at the table tomorrow, we'll have a printout of our voter roll,
Uh-huh.
our 2026 voter roll. And what I'd like to do is have a double recording system there. I'm bringing a notebook that's got one page that says, new voters, right? We have one new voter who called and emailed to come in. And then the next page is replacement ballot requests. And there should be somebody at the table writing down, Susie Smith didn't get her ballot, wants a replacement, and somebody
Yeah.
else sitting there with the voter roll marking R next to Susie Smith. So the person with the notebook writes down the name and address and the request, and the person with the voter roll in front of them puts an R that says, they requested a replacement. So that way we got
Uh-huh.
a double system to record to make sure we got it
And
right.
the person who says they're a new voter, obviously you have to cross-check that with the voter roll to make sure that they're not already
I did.
registered.
I
Right?
did that
Okay.
already. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
son of
Okay.
people who are already registered.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was able to verify him on the phone with date of birth and all that. He answered all the questions.
Oh,
And I sent him an
okay.
email on our committee email saying, congratulations, welcome to being the newest voter on our voter roll. Um,
Okay.
and so
Great.
he's all confirmed. And we will also, in terms of new voters, I've got 3 copies, we might need more, but three is probably enough, of the standard form that people can fill out at the table to register as a new voter.
Mhm.
And that's a simple process. But I do think that we do need to have one person kind of have the voter roll in front of them and mark requests for replacement ballots, and one person have the notebook in front of them and write down the name of the requester and their address. You don't need
Mhm.
the whole address, just the street address, Susie Smith at, 101 Delfield or whatever. So, that's a pretty straightforward process. Um,
Mhm. Okay.
and Nikki has said that she's in Ohio this week, but that her colleague Erica will be standing by Thursday morning at Electech in New Jersey to send out any and all new voter ballots or replacement ballots that we send them. So we just need to get the list of them by Wednesday. Wednesday night is fine. That all right, and I can compile that. That won't take me but 2 minutes to do that. Um, so it
No.
makes sense to anybody? Any other questions about
No,
that process?
no,
Okay, let's go back
absolutely.
to the text then.
Oh,
Um,
somebody else
yeah,
Alexa has her
Jack
hand.
had a bunch of questions. I
Jack
think
had
Yeah.
Mike
some
Z had
issues.
questions too, and I've got Jack's
All right.
questions here. Okay, so Jack, thank you for the great job. Very thorough. I do try. Um, and the first question you had about why is the contractor not able to put postal tracking codes on the incoming ballot packets? Good frickin' question. They used to be able to do that. They had a contractor who specifically did that. And one of the reasons that I think we hired Electric back in 2020, I was involved in interviewing them and recommended hiring them. It's partly because they're the only ones around at this point, but back then there were a couple. And Electech did do that. They had a subcontractor who sent out everything with tracking codes on it. Their contractor quit or went out of business or something. And then in 21, 22, and 23, there was no tracking. And in 24, this committee with some of the current members, you know, found LetterTrack. Larry Watson actually found it, and Michael Silliman was nice enough to help us set it up. And so we've been able to track on the return envelope. So I asked Nikki about that again this year. I said, why can't Electech do this? And you've got LetterTrack. It works well. She's familiar with the software now because Electech has to put it on the return envelopes when they print the return envelopes. Why can't they print it on the outgoing envelopes or the incoming or the envelopes that come to VMA? And she said that it wasn't a great explanation. He said that on the return envelopes that our voters return to them, they're all going to the same address, namely New Jersey, and that you can print the envelopes from the LetterTrack software very easily with just one number, for each of the return ballots, right? And it's the same number that they assign for the security number, right? That's a simple process. And Nikki's explanation to me why they couldn't do it in the other direction was that on the ballots that are coming to VMA, it's a different address on each envelope. Susie Smith versus Jake Jones, and that they would have to manually somehow use a different number, that they couldn't use the same number in both directions to track the incoming ballot to VMA and the return envelope from our VMA voters. Now, at that point, what do you say? I can't tell her what she can and cannot do. She's telling me that the Electech isn't going to do that. And I said, well, how much would it cost if we did want you to take the time to do that? It didn't make sense to me, but I asked her how much would, and she said, basically thousands. And that is true from back in 2024 when we asked, and they said 4,000. Alexa, you got your hand up. You want to weigh in
Yeah,
here?
yes. Yeah, my only question had to do with the issue you're talking about now, delay of the ballots. And I'm wondering, for instance, how many missing ballots would trigger the kind of action that may be necessary?
That's a different question than the tracking.
It is.
Yeah, can we hold that question for a minute and finish talking about the tracking piece? Is that okay?
Of
Alexa?
course.
Okay. So on the tracking, Jack, what's your thought? It seems to me they ought to be able to track in both directions. They say they cannot, and that it would be prohibitively expensive because of their time involved, and if they tried to put tracking on their ballots that's sent to us. You're looking dubious. I'm dubious about that, but what are you going to say? If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it.
I th um I'm happy to talk. It has to be possible. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I'm not convinced that it's not possible and that we couldn't figure out how to do it. I think it would depend on whether we think it's worth the cost. Like if we're, how many ballots do we send out?
642 this year.
Okay. So, I mean, if we were just to do tracking through the post office, just
Hmm.
use like first class with certified delivery,
Right,
then I mean, it's not cheap. That's like 3 grand.
right.
Um, and if we paid them to do it,
It's more because of their labor time.
I mean, even if we're paying somebody 25 bucks an hour to put tracking numbers on an envelope, if they could, even if they could only do like one every 5 minutes, which would seem way too slow, it's still got to be cheaper than paying 5 bucks an envelope.
One
Marty,
would think.
Marty, can
Go
I
ahead.
jump in here?
Sure, you bet.
Um, yeah, I'm also dubious of the first response that comes back. No, that's way too hard. I totally
Yeah.
think it's possible to do the exact same letter track, even though it's going to different addresses versus all going to the same address. I still think it's possible to with letter track. So it would basically be double the cost, right? We're putting the barcode on every single return envelope. We could put it on every single outgoing envelope from New Jersey as well. It'd be double the cost and presumably double the labor for them to do that. But the question really is that worthwhile? Because
Yeah.
presumably, if a couple ballots don't arrive on the way here, that's okay. We have a process to issue replacement ballots, and we will know if they don't arrive because they won't arrive, and the voters will tell us.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
it's almost not needed because we would know. And in this case, we do know. We know which ballots didn't arrive because we're getting flooded with emails from
Yeah,
our residents.
exactly. I mean, thank goodness our voters do pay attention, at least most of them. And if their ballot doesn't show up, they do tell us, hallelujah, that's what you want. You
Right.
want an engaged citizenry.
I would bet that there are a huge number of people who, if they don't get a ballot, just won't even think about it and would
That's true
otherwise
too.
vote.
That's true, Jack. And that's a reason for the committee to step up and do the tracking and make sure that people that we know as a committee, our responsibility is to make sure that the contractor delivers ballots to all of our voters on that list. And I know when they mailed them, because they mailed them to everybody on the list, but did the people on the list receive them? If the recipient doesn't say that they didn't, we don't know.
Yeah, I
And
think I think in a situation like a lot of the work we did around red confirming that the voter roll was up to date, kind of the same thing applies there. It's like anyone could tell us that they didn't receive a ballot and we would know, but we're worried that people aren't going to do that. And so in the event that 5 to 10% of people don't receive a ballot, there's a really close election, and a candidate who just barely lost is hearing that people didn't receive a ballot. I think that would be reason to doubt the fairness of the election.
yeah, yeah, and you know what a stickler I am about fair elections. So I would love to see the tracking in both directions. However, the mechanics of that might need to work out. If we needed to use two different sets of tracking numbers, that's fine. I just mailed a tracked envelope for my brother to help pay his taxes. And it was $6.05 for a tracked envelope from here up to I think it was Baltimore or Annapolis or someplace. Anyway, but
But,
I mean, yeah, whatever. It was six
yeah,
bucks. Yeah, basically. And that's a
could I
lot.
just,
Yeah.
I'm curious what people on this call, including Michael, Arthur, Alexa, uh, like what number would you put on the importance of tracking? Like, obviously, if it's $100,000, it's a definite no. If it's $10, it's a definite yes. Like, if we're negotiating with Electech on the cost of doing this, what's kind of the range of reasonable prices? Like, what's the cap that we would pay?
Yeah, I 3,000 seems high. 1,000? I don't know. Could
Yeah.
you folks do it?
No, because we don't physically handle the incoming ballots. They're produced in New Jersey.
I
The
know, but
ballots.
could you handle the tracking?
We could do what we do now with the tracking on the return envelopes, which is have an email that, from LetterTrack, where we get the emails that, when it goes through Philadelphia or Baltimore or all the processing centers, we can handle the review of the tracking data. Although it's a chore, it takes some time.
Right.
But we can't actually physically put the tracking on the envelopes because the envelopes are up in New Jersey. And so, I
No,
mean,
I'm saying that if they put the tracking on, if they put the barcodes or whatever is required, could they just transfer the reviewing of that to you?
they already have on the other end and the other
Okay,
direction.
do it on the front end. I mean, if you really want it, that's the way to do it. Means work for the committee, or
Yeah,
or a hire
right. A
to do that.
contractor could do that for us,
Yeah,
both directions.
yeah.
Because it's not a difficult job, it's just a time consuming, and again, like a lot of election work, a very meticulous job. You really need to make sure that you're looking at what you're looking at, and getting it right. So
But then there's the question that Jack raises: how much is that worth?
right.
Right.
And to me, it's worth a lot because, again, I think election integrity really matters. We haven't had elections challenged in VMA, mostly probably because we have nice people here who, you know, candidates don't generally challenge elections. But it could happen, and that would be an expense in itself to have an election challenged in court. Um, would be expensive for VMA. And even if it was just challenged on an administrative level, it would be expensive for the committee in terms of our continued time. because this is a very labor-intensive process running elections, as we all know. So, there's a real cost of not doing it or a potential cost. I mean,
I,
like you say often, Arthur, risk management. Um,
so
I
I
think
don't
there's
know. I don't see where if you're doing your due diligence, people have the opportunity to notify you if they haven't received the ballot. They have the opportunity to do it at the celebration on the sidewalk. If they haven't gotten, they've never noticed they haven't gotten it, and all of a sudden the election's over, and they say, "Whoops, what happened? I never voted." Uh, I don't see how you could be liable for anything like that.
well, thank you. I agree with that assessment. That's my take on it. And we put out multiple notices saying if your ballot has not arrived, please, contact the committee. Here's
Right.
over and over again. We must have put out 10 of those so far. We'll probably put a couple more out before the sort of due date for mailing. So, um, we have certainly provided ample notice to the
Right.
community.
This
The
may be a
ballots,
non-problem.
yeah. So I think the risk is relatively low, but I think that it really needs to be fair. The elections need to be visible enough so that people have a hard time ignoring the fact that their ballot should be here and isn't. Um, so, Jack, what's your thought on that? I want to come back around to you on that.
do others agree with Arthur's number that like $1,000 is probably our cap here? Does that seem reasonable?
Something like that.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know either. Well,
I
if
really,
that's the case, yeah, and
yeah.
Electech is quoting multiple thousands of dollars, then I agree that it's probably a non-issue.
Elizabeth, Nomi, what do you think?
Um, well, I'm also thinking that we bend over backwards to notify in many
Okay.
different ways people, residents of what they need to do and what's happening when and all of that. If they choose not to read the messages, I don't know if we have to feel responsible for them doing that.
I
You
agree.
know what I mean? I initially agreed with you, Jack, when you were saying that somebody could say, but if they were to claim that something wasn't quite right, then we just pull out the list of all the notifications that have been sent in different formats.
Yeah.
It might be good to use the community listserv a little bit more.
Hmm.
My feeling is that there may be a group of people that only look at that and don't pay attention to official announcements. I mean, it's possible.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we should make sure that we, spread it out a little bit more and use that, like tomorrow, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And
What is the total contract price for Electech? Is that 10 grand? Is that what we've got
Uh,
in our budget and stuff?
Michael
Yes.
Silliman, you want to respond to that? It's 10 grand for the basic contract, plus there's some add-ons.
Yeah, so postage is starting to add up, and then this mail tracking things on top of that. So we've in the next year's budget, we've actually raised it, I think to 12,000, if I
Okay.
remember correctly,
All
yes.
right.
just to make sure we're not going over that price every year.
Yeah.
The other comment I would make here, and maybe this is opening a whole nother can of worms, but we already have an election event, and it does seem like I mean, I agree with where this conversation has gone that we're kind of trying to solve a problem before it's actually happened every year by putting tracking on it, but on the outgoing envelopes. But we already have an event that's happening, and it's kind of like it's still in the back of my head that well, why is this a vote by mail election, or why isn't this a hybrid where we could have replacement ballots there on site at a future election event on the sidewalk and be able to handle these types of situations ourselves in live time,
Right.
versus same thing with like recounts, which are a possibility here. This could get really expensive at election, if we had to do a recount or a revote, because something went wrong, it could double,
Yes, exactly.
in one year. So I actually, I mean, that's a whole can of worms. But I think before we tried to solve, this one potential problem of 100 potential problems, for future years, I think maybe there would be a need for a larger conversation about the way we do elections and why we've kind of migrated to vote by mail only.
Yeah, let me give you a short answer to that, Michael. Doing a hybrid election raises major security issues. It's not something that a small committee can actually do securely. And now again, there's state law, there's federal law. VMA has a lot of latitude in how we do our elections, but I can tell you in terms of election process, hybrid elections are twice as much work, more than twice as much work. And it's really considered not a good practice to have live ballots floating around a village of this size. Mail vote elections are more inclusive than in-person elections. Obviously, more you get more people to participate by mail. That's true nationwide. But in a small village, doing a hybrid election is actually a major risk to election security because you have live ballots floating around. And instead of having just a very clear process where the ballots are issued and the track record is kept by a contractor who is the sole issuer. Um, so yeah, that's a much bigger conversation than we have time for tonight. But there's good reasons why we don't do hybrid. You have to be as big as Montgomery County to do hybrid with any kind of
Oh,
efficiency and security, which we're not equipped to do.
mm.
So it's a capacity concern. But
Another alternative would be to just go with the Dropbox.
if we could do a Dropbox securely, now there the state regs do apply. We don't have the means to do a secure, accessible Dropbox for more than one night. That's why tomorrow night we need to have two of us from the committee supervising that Dropbox at all
Uh-huh.
times because of the security requirements. And when you have a Dropbox the size of a mailbox, I mean, you could put that in my Jeep and drive it away. So, and we can't put it up in the village office for two reasons. Number one, it's not accessible. Law
Uh-huh.
requires the Dropbox be accessible. And number two, that puts the burden of security of the Dropbox on the staff where it does not belong, because that
Mhm.
office is easy to break into. I mean, I hope no one breaks into it ever, but it's not Fort Knox. And that
Mhm.
responsibility is not the staff's responsibility. It's the election committee that has to secure the Dropbox. And we don't have enough people to do a Dropbox two nights. I mean, it takes all of us to do it tomorrow night. So, you know, one night of Dropbox I think is great. I mean, I hope a zillion people use the Dropbox tomorrow so we don't have any worries about postal delays on the return envelopes, because that's the most efficient way to do an election is with a Dropbox. But does that answer your question? Did I get to your point?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just comparing it to the way, I mean, when you vote for the national and the local elections,
Yeah, the size of
if
that Dropbox is big. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean that's voting day, and that's it. One opportunity on voting day, right?
Mhm.
And I mean the mail voting was something that was added in the county recently. I can't remember when that was, but it wasn't always that way. Years ago, it was just in-person voting.
You could always do an absentee ballot. So Montgomery County's
Right.
had mail voting for probably
Yeah,
decades, but they were called
exactly.
absentee ballots back in the old
Right.
days. Now we have a
But
much larger piece of people, group of people in Montgomery County and
yeah,
across the states. I mean, it's across the United States. The number of people voting by mail has really gone up ever since the
right.
pandemic.
Yeah, well, it's very convenient for, so
And it also increases ADA accessibility and better
sure.
for people with small kids, et cetera. So there's
Hmm.
lots of reasons, why mail voting is considered much more democratic than in-person voting. Even if
Right.
you do multiple days for in-person voting, you can't match the degree of accessibility that mail voting allows.
Yeah.
I mean, Naomi, you've been quiet thinking. What are you thinking?
I agree with Elizabeth. We really don't need to spoon feed the voters. If they don't get a ballot and they get all kinds of notices that they need to let us know, they should come to the table tomorrow, I think it's enough. On the other hand, if they never receive a ballot, they have a qualm to make. They have qualms. Yeah, I get that. We need to make sure they get the ballot.
Right,
So,
that's our job to have that voter
yeah.
list be accurate and to make sure that Electech does mail them all and that they get received. Um, Good discussion, folks. Good discussion. Again, we don't need to decide all this tonight, but let's go back and resolve the question that Jack originally raised about um, the contractor is not currently able to put postal tracking codes on the ballot packets to
I
us.
think I'm good. I'm convinced that this is not an issue we need to solve, and we can move on from my perspective.
On rotating back, yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. And again, Jack, thank you for recording this because I think, future committees are going to have this information and this discussion as part of their basis for what they do. Let me go to your second question, Jack, from what you sent in on the email. On the scheduled date, the contractor emails the EC to confirm the packets were mailed. Your question was, should we also ask them to send us a scan? I don't think we need to do that because what I did when the post office, when I filed the complaint on the 28th of April, the formal problem report with the post office, they asked for a scan the next day, and I just scanned the sample ballots. You remember when we did the test mailing?
Ah, got it.
Yeah.
I thought they'd provided that. Okay.
It was
Then
easy to do. So that I think
then
takes.
question number two withdrawn as well.
Um, yeah, I think that we basically have a scan if we need one.
Okay.
And Electech did say that their post office up in New Jersey asked them for a scan as well, and they of course provided it to the New Jersey post office. I provided it for Westlake, and in terms of the formal complaint
And
regarding
I think
in
my
yeah,
I
okay.
was going to say my third, and now we're to the question Alexa had asked earlier.
Right. So Alexa, we're coming back around to you. The two options for VMA. Yeah, the last thing, and this goes to Michael Silliman's point too, it costs another $10,000 if we have to rerun the election. Electech is not going to do that for free. To me, that is the worst possible option because it's so disruptive in terms of the process in VMA and the timing. We want to have people elected, 6 weeks before they have to actually be seated as council members. Alexa, you can speak to this. You need to get up to speed. It takes a little time to become a council member. You got a lot to absorb. So we want to have the elections like in mid-May so that people have some time to actually get their get themselves organized before they have to actually be seated in the council on the first. Um, and we
So
do, go ahead. Who
the
wants
least,
to?
the least wanted option was to be do the election. But my question had more to do with how are you going to quantify when it is time to trigger a I think put it as I'm sorry, what was it? Oh, rescheduling the vote to a later date, which would be more doable.
Right, right.
But what would trigger that decision? Because right now the language in the document is not specific,
Yeah, it
and
just
I'm
says
wondering if it's specific.
significant. Yeah. A significant
Yeah.
number when it comes to what's the significant number that would trigger election action by the election commissioners. Um, Generally, the election literature says that if you've got enough outstanding ballots or undelivered ballots, that they could actually be more than the difference between the winning and losing margin of your candidates, that you have to take some action to make sure that you include missing ballots. So if we have a tradition in Martin traditions or a history in Martin traditions of elections being decided by 3 votes or 5 votes or 10 votes, that if we have, you know, more than 10 missing ballots, um, we need to go look for them, right? We need to include them because that is likely to be larger than the margin of winning and losing. Now, when you got Montgomery County and you got, 500,000 voters, you know, the margin might be 30,000 ballots, right? Before you have to take action. But for us with a small town, it's much more sensitive. So what triggers, some election action, unspecified, but some remedial action, um, in our case would be, I would argue, as little as 5 or 10 ballots, because that is more than enough historically to determine the outcome of an election here. So that's the practical answer. And I think that we need to avoid rescheduling an entire election at all costs because I do not want to have $20,000 elections here. I don't think it's necessary. I think that's really too much. And the overnighting, gets expensive depending on what overnighting service you use. It could be anywhere from, I think, $12 was the cheapest I found to $35, like Jack found. We don't want to overnight 200 ballots. And I asked Electech what's their remedy because we're not the only people this has happened to in history. And Nikki said on the phone that one of the things that some villages do, villages like small, like our size, under 1,500 voters, um, is have the replacement ballots and ballots for new voters too, all sent in a box to
Yeah,
the election commission. And then the election commission has to distribute them. So we have that legal responsibility to distribute those
Mhm.
ballots.
Right.
And the only thing that I find problematic there is number one, it would take more time for the committee, but we can walk around. I mean, we got a couple of athletic men. Mike Z, I'm thinking of you. You're very athletic. I'm thinking like you could
I'll
be our
run
fifth.
them. I'll run them around instead of morning run.
Exactly. You could do that. And thank you for volunteering. And Jack, I'm thinking you could put the kids in the stroller and, do Quincy Street. So, I mean, it's doable for the committee to distribute even 200 replacement ballots. We could do that. And that
Good.
would obviously save a great deal of money.
Yeah.
Any other
Okay.
comments on that, Elizabeth?
My question, I just put the
Jack,
stupid hand thing up there
Mike.
was, uh, is, reschedule entire election. I was looking at the charter and the election regulations, um, 402 and 602 of the charter specify that, the election must take place between March 1st and 5/15 each year. And, council members' terms begin on July 1. So you got a little leeway there, but you have an election before 5/15. Are we having an election? Is this election held before May 15th?
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
was a decision that was made back in the day that, election day traditionally was defined by law, federal level, as
Hmm.
the last day on which you could vote in person.
Okay.
Um, and when you go to mail voting elections, there is no one day when you can vote in person. There's no one last day. So what you have is an election period rather than an election day. And the
Hmm.
decision was made that for public purposes, that Martin's edition should define our election day as our public event when we have the drop box and the table on the sidewalk, that is our quote election day. Um,
Okay.
and that let's see if I can get the video back on here. That is, I mean, we can define election day however we want, but that it basically have only two options. One is the vote counting date, which is after May 15th, because of the way the
Right.
timing works through the year. And
Right.
then there is the public event, which is before May 15th, generally the first or second Tuesday in May. We try to do the first Tuesday because that works better with the overall scheduling. And so it is our call, and the council has agreed that election day is defined as the day when we have the drop box, and it's the last day you can add new voters, and it's the day that we're all at the table to, respond to any voter requests for assistance. So that is our definition of election day. Within the voting period, we have this date as election day when we provide these specific services. That's our definition of
In a
election day.
practical matter, you're not going to be rescheduling the entire election. You won't, period. Uh,
I hope not.
Your May 5th will probably have come and gone, or
Right.
maybe you decide not to do it, and move that to May 10th or something. But you could do what you were talking about more is extending the actual vote counting date. Uh,
Right. That's
from
the that's
and
the critical date that would need to move.
right, but that's not
Okay.
rescheduling an election. That's just extending the vote counting date.
yeah,
Good point.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't need to reissue all the ballots
No.
unless
Right.
unless Electric has screwed up so badly that we didn't get any of them, or we only got like 30 ballots out of 600, then they'd have to reissue all the ballots. But um, that would be a really expensive proposition because they won't do that for free. I mean, unless it was their screw up, in which case our contract now says, the committee last year um, had Michael renegotiate a couple key phrases in our contract with Electech so that if Electech screwed it up and their mistake, rather than a post office mistake, prevented us from receiving the ballots, if it was an Electech mistake, they'd have to reissue 600 ballots at their cost. They would not be happy about that. In this
Well,
case,
my point
post
then
office.
is that A doesn't seem to have any place in there. You're not talking about rescheduling an election.
No, we might have to
Yeah.
reissue all the ballots.
Just reschedule vote counting, skip to, take A and B out and then just leave reschedule in. And it
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense to just, I think Michael suggested earlier, he could have replacement ballots at the table on
yeah, there are lots of
May 5th.
downsides to
Well,
that, but
we don't have
yeah,
to do it now, but I mean, and if we had to chunk and then we had to do having them FedEx to us and then have them distributed, makes a lot of sense. It will be pretty fast. It would be relatively cheap, and who knows? You're not going to
Yeah,
have that many of them. So,
one hopes we don't have
right.
200 of them.
What's the downside of having replacement ballots at the table, blank one?
The security issues that again, this gets into the weeds on election management literature, but that doing a hybrid election where you have unassigned ballots at the table, live ballots that are not assigned to a specific voter, um, is considered extremely insecure and extremely poor practice. That those ballots could be grabbed by somebody. Back in the day when we were doing both voting in person, and we would have the actual, I mean, the committee produced the ballots. We use a different color
Yeah.
paper every year for security, and we had them in an envelope on the lap of the committee chair or vice chair at all times. And then we would put them on clipboards, and people had to check in, and then we handed the clipboard with a ballot to that person. I mean, the controls at the in-person side were very burdensome for the committee. It was a lot of work to control that. And we did have people try to grab ballots who were not checked in as voters. And so that was not an abstract possibility. That did happen. We had people try to, um, you know, and we would have 7 people working at that election table when we were doing in-person voting, mainly to prevent the security from being violated. That people couldn't just grab 3 ballots and vote 3 times, or grab 10 ballots and vote 10 times.
Okay.
Um,
Good
so
point.
yeah.
I agree with you on that. I think that's not a good idea.
Other comments on that? Okay. Um, Jack, did we answer all your questions? And Alexa,
Yes.
did we answer your questions?
Yeah, 5 to 10 ballots. Okay.
All right. Does anybody else have any other changes on that draft document? A little page and a half that I wrote up. And I wrote it at midnight, so feel free to edit it. This is not like, Shakespeare here. I got Elizabeth, I made your edits. Um, Mike Z, I took out option A and just made 7B option B. Um, and so there are 2 sub options there. One is have them elect FedEx, an overnight ballot replacement individually to, 15 voters, or if there are more than 5 or 10, have them send the box to us. And I think we have a committee consensus. Let me just check on this. That what we will do in this case and in the future is that if there's a large number of voters, more than 10, say, rather than FedExing them individually to those voters, we'll have them FedEx one envelope to the election committee, and Mike Z will do the running.
We'll distribute. Sure.
Is that a fair assessment of where we are?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody agree, disagree? All right. Let's actually
Mhm.
take a vote on that. That we will, um, on number 7, say that the option for VMA is to reschedule the vote counting to a later date, and that we will choose to, or we recommend going with what's in the note. Right? I can rewrite that so that to have one FedEx package come and then we distribute them. And all those ballots will be marked with the address of the person that they're sent to. We just need to make sure we give that voter their ballot. All right.
So we're just voting on one section of this
Yeah, let's
proposed
take a vote on
procedure.
that
I
because it's a
think
procedure.
um I think updating the wording so that we're not making it look like rescheduling the entire election is a realistic.
I struck that completely.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
I
so
guess
now it says VMA will, instead of 2 options, it's like VMA will reschedule the vote counting to a later date, and either A, instruct the contractor to overnight a replacement ballot to each
right,
voter, or B, have them send them as a box to the committee and the committee distributes them. So that's
Great.
how I'll rework that. Does that make sense?
fine with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Elizabeth?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5
Yes.
from it. All right, we have a
Yes.
voted, yeah, okay. We have voted 5 to reword that as instructed. I will send that around to you guys later tonight. Okay, going to the back page on that delays on the ballot return envelopes from VMA. Does anybody have any edits or questions about any of those steps? Okay, the only issue that's been raised there was raised by Alexa and Jack, which is in number 4 and 5 on the ballot return envelopes. What counts as a significant number? And that is based on the election records in the village of how many votes we have between the margin of winning and losing. And so I would say a significant number is 5, because we've had elections often decided by 2 or 3 votes. We had one election I recall was 1 vote. Usually it's 2 or 3. Sometimes it's as much as 10 or 20 between the winner and loser, but it's often under 10.
Okay.
And that will be discovered that there are 5 or more missing through this tracking
Right,
technique.
right,
They have they've not arrived in New Jersey.
right. If 5 ballots have not arrived in New Jersey, we reschedule the vote counting. I think that that's important. And again, this you go down to the final general sentence there at the end. If the postal delays require us to reschedule the vote counting date, we need to request council approval for that, I think. Alexa, do you have any guidance for us on that?
I don't, but I will look into it and talk with other council members.
On one hand, Mike Z, if we go back and look at what the charter says, it says the um, election shall be managed by the committee. Well, this is an election management decision, so it's clearly a committee decision. And there's nothing in the regs that prohibits us from rescheduling in case of a delay. I mean, the regs don't address this issue. They're silent on it. And as you know, being a lawyer, if the law doesn't prohibit it, that means it's allowed. So one could make a pretty solid argument that the committee could just on its own say so, its own authority, say, okay, we've got 50 missing ballots. We obviously need to reschedule the vote counting, and just do it. I think that probably it's smart to ask the council, at least as a courtesy, to approve that decision, but it's probably not legally necessary. Interesting question. What do you think, Mike C?
I was on a phone call and I'm just returning. Let me, I think the charter does say that the election has to take place by a certain date.
Yeah, we
That's
talked about
May
that.
15th.
We covered that.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I don't know whether the council has the authority to override that.
No,
Uh,
the vote counting date is outside that framework. Election day takes place before May 15th. That's what the charter says.
yeah,
And so we're clear on that. That's not an issue. The vote counting takes place after election day. The vote counting day is in a
right.
mail vote election. Vote counting day is different than election day. Election day is
Yeah,
May 5th. And so we could count the votes on, well, it's May 21 this year, or May 25th if we had to, or May 30th. And that doesn't violate the charter because the election day has happened
that's correct.
already.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're good on that, Arthur. Um, any other comments on this from anybody?
No.
Okay.
Let's move
Um,
on.
okay. All right. Can we have a vote to approve the SOP as amended? A motion and then a vote?
Oh,
Motion to approve.
Okay, second, anybody?
second.
Okay.
All in favor of approving it as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, you got unanimous. No dissenting. All right, approved vote. Thanks. I think it's just good to have it written down,
I agree.
Okay. All right. Number 3, check the postal tracking. I think, Mike Z and Jack, you're on that. Do you have any questions about doing that? All right. I think we're in good hands. Thank you guys for taking that up. The voter services, I think you all have seen. I took on the job of answering voter questions that came into the village VMA election committee email. And it hasn't been too bad. I mean, there's been a lot, but it's not something that takes much time for me to do. So if you haven't read the responses there, feel free to do that. That's voter services. And obviously the voter services tomorrow night are important at the table. Anything else about voter services? Okay, go ahead.
We're going to discuss that, aren't we, on the next one?
Yeah, May 5th. That's our next item. What we need to do tomorrow. We talked earlier about having a notebook where we write down any new voters, and we have the form for the new voters. I've got that ready to go. And somebody marking the voter roll when anybody who wants a replacement ballot. In the notebook, we write down people who ask for replacement ballots. So we've got a procedure there. The logistics for tomorrow, I think Nomi suggested that we have 2 teams. I think that's a great idea. And I think Mike Z and I are probably going to be there for the duration. And Jack, I can't wait to see the kids with you there for the first half. That will be really fun. and you're more than welcome to bring kids. They can hand out the stickers that say I voted.
My
Any
oldest loves a task.
Oh, well, we'll give them a task. And I think I mentioned in one of the emails earlier to the committee members, if parents want their kids to actually, open the drawer on the drop box and put the ballots in, that's fine. We want kids to participate. We want to raise future voters. So anything we can do to welcome. We'll have little flags around, and we try to make it a fun thing. Any other questions about the logistics?
Hey, one question just on the back on the pushing off the vote counting date. Just a
Hmm.
note, the current regs, title or section 11 XI 1
Hmm.
says the committee and contractor shall schedule vote counting session to be held between 2 and 3 weeks after election day. We might need to amend that down the road so that we've got
Right,
a little more pad if we need it.
right,
Because
right,
we could
right.
run into that restriction if we uh, pushed it too
Right.
far.
Uh,
Okay.
it may be amended as needed by due to postal delays or something like that.
Right. Or some
Yeah,
wiggle,
that's easy.
some
That's
wiggle
easy.
room.
Yep. Wiggle room next year.
Yeah.
Contingency planning, we call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just put a note on that. We're good. All righty. Anything else for tomorrow?
Hmm?
We're comfortable
The three
voters.
copies of the new voter form.
I have them ready to go. They're in my folder. It's a standard
Okay.
form that's on our um I think it's on our committee page. It should be from a few years back. We did a standard form and the council approved it back, I
Okay.
think, 2024. Yeah, so that's ready to go.
Is that
Uh,
enough? You don't
I
anticipate?
well, no, Michael, the office, Michael Silliman, the office will be open, right? We can run up and make more. If we have 10 new voters, we can make more copies of the new voter form. Yes,
He's watering.
he's watering. Okay, I know we can do that because we've done that in
Arthur
the
will be
past.
there. He'll let us in.
Yeah,
All
Yep.
right.
I'll need a
Okay.
key.
Yeah. Anything else from anybody about logistics for tomorrow? The only question I had was for you, Jack. Um, would it be possible? I know this totally runs into bedtime for kids, but it's nice to have all five of us there at 8 o'clock when we do the official counting of the vote, envelopes that are in the drop box. And we usually count twice for that and record the count. And then we put them into these manila envelopes, like 30, 40 in each envelope, and we each sign across the back sealed envelope. Now you don't have to be there for that, but it's nice if you could be. And I don't know, that's at 8 o'clock, right on sharp at 8 o'clock. So we'd need you
Uh,
there like at 8:05.
I'm
And if
the
that's
only, yeah, Tally has an event that night, and so I
so
have to be
you're
here with the kids.
Yeah, okay. You are officially excused, and I
Thank
understand
you.
why. Yeah,
Sorry to miss it.
Sorry, I
no, no
wasn't
problem.
able to unmute a second ago. Yes, I will be there, and the office will be open for the duration. So if anyone needs the bathroom or anything like that, yeah, or office supplies, happy to help.
That's wonderful, Michael. Thank you so much for your support. You've been terrific on this.
I'll
And
try to I'll try to be there. It's dinner time for us. It's yeah,
eight
precious
o'clock.
time that I'll try to be there. We usually eat at 7. We'll see if we can make it.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
really
promise.
important to have as
I
many.
can't I
I,
can't promise.
yeah, I think that the more of us who are there for that handover, the better it is. I mean, we'll have at least three. We'll have Elizabeth, Mike Z, and
That,
me. But
that's a quorum.
that's a quorum, and that's all we legally need, but it just feels better to me to have four. Plus, it's kind of a nice little ceremonial thing. It only takes 10 minutes. It's not a long thing. It's just like, but having us all there to sign. Yeah,
Right.
if you can, know me, like I say, bring your dessert and come on over and eat it at the table.
No dessert here, but
Yeah,
definitely dinner time. Very precious.
yes, indeed.
Family time. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Can't run
Uh,
out at a guy that cooks dinner for you. Can't run out on that.
when Kevin's cooking, yeah, I wouldn't miss that dinner either.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on May 5th? Any other questions? Okay, the main thing legally is that we have to have at least two of us at that table to supervise the Dropbox at all times, which
Mhm.
means we need three people covering the entire period. And we've got Jack and Nomi for the first half. We've got Elizabeth and Mike for the second half, and me. And Mike and me, I think Mike Z and I will be there probably the whole time. And Elizabeth, thank you for picking up the second half because
Mm-hmm.
you've got stuff with Jeffrey where you're like, your time is not
Yeah,
terribly flexible
yeah,
either. So
yeah.
thank
Be
you for that.
by himself, right?
Yeah. But we do need three of us on site, right? So that somebody can go to the bathroom if they need to. Anything else on May 5th?
Okay.
No.
No.
Okay, moving
Let's
on.
go to
Okay,
5.
let's go to number 5. The vote counting session on May 21st. There are two critical session times there. The first half hour, we've got a schedule to start at 7, assuming that we still do it on the 21st, which I will assume, fingers crossed. Um, the first half hour is really critical. That's when Electech staff holds up the ballot envelopes and says, "Do you accept this as a legitimate envelope?" And if it wasn't signed, it goes into a separate set to get ballot curing, where we have a little form that voter can sign later after that night to get their ballot envelope later opened and added into the vote count. But that first half hour, first we look at the ballots, envelopes, right? And we accept the envelopes as either valid or need further action. And so you had two stacks. Then after that, um, the Electech staff opens the outer envelopes and separates out all the sealed inner security envelopes. It's a regular process. I mean, they got very fast and efficient at it. So you have two stacks of envelopes on the table at that point. You got the privacy envelopes unopened, and you've got the outer envelopes, which people have signed, right? And then we give the staff at Electech permission to open the privacy envelopes, take out the ballots, flatten them out, and start running them through the counting machine. At that point, people with kids to put to bed can go to put their kids to bed, right? And the rest of us can just, turn off the sound and have the Zoom on the background. And, I can call you all and say, hey, back up. At the end of the counting, there's another period of maybe 10, 15 minutes, not long, where all five of us need to be there because that's where we have to review and, quote, adjudicate any questionable ballots. If somebody wrote in 4 names instead of 3, that's an invalid ballot. It's disqualified. We as a committee have to vote to disqualify it. If somebody's ballot is not clear, maybe they vote in for 3 write-in names. What are the names? Can we read the names? We need to adjudicate that. And that I really, really feel like we ought to have all 5 of us there because again, I guess it's a comfort thing for me to have the entire committee be there to do that and make those decisions. Because the election outcome can depend on that. If we decide that a ballot is unreadable, right? The machine kicked it out, the machine couldn't read it, and the Alexic staff holds it up like this, in front of us, and we say, okay, what did that person vote for? Um, we need, I think, a full committee there just to make sure that we all are looking at it and that 5 different sets of eyes on it before we make that decision. So there are 2 time slots from 7 to 7:20 roughly. And then, depending on how many ballots come in, the where we're actually looking at the individual ballots that were not readable could be at 8:15, it could be at 8:30, um, but it's usually about an hour in between while they're running their machines to count the ballots. Yeah, Elizabeth, go ahead.
So on the first segment, they're going to hold up. We're on Zoom and we're looking in our screens here. They're going to hold up only the ballots that aren't clear, or they're going to hold up every ballot for us to look at.
No. The
Huh?
first session at
I
7
mean, the
o'clock,
envelope. It's the
they
outer
hold
envelope.
they hold up only the envelopes that have some question about.
Only
Right.
so they've already looked through them and they've sorted them out, so they have a pile with questions
Right. And it's usually
on the outer envelope only. Is that what
questions
you're
on the
saying?
outer envelope. I'll give you an
Okay.
example. 2 residents have now contacted me to say that they had to tape their outer envelope shut because they forgot to do something on their ballot and they wanted to reopen it and then it tore, so they put tape on it. It was still a
Okay.
legitimate ballot. And I told them
Yeah.
both, yeah, it is. They should just initial the tape, on top of the tape that they made
Uh-huh.
that change. But that's the kind of thing Electric would flag and hold up. Is this a legitimate ballot envelope?
Yes.
And we would say,
Okay.
yeah. The other thing we've had in the past is where people switched their envelopes. Like if you and Jeffrey
Yeah.
used each, and we've accepted that. That's in the regs now that we, as a matter of principle,
Right.
accept those as being legitimate, valid ballots. We count them. So
Okay.
anyway, Electric will hold up any questionable ballot envelopes for us in those first 15, 20 minutes. And we just need to say, put it in the ballot envelopes to be opened and counted, or put it in the, we need to do something more with the committee.
Yeah.
So two stacks, right? Okay?
And if they forgot to sign the back of it,
It goes
that's
into
it.
that second stack because we have a little form that voter needs to
Mhm.
sign. And then we email Electek back and say, okay, you know, Mike Z signed his form, and so you can go ahead and open his ballot envelope. We have 5 days to do that under the regs, to do the ballot curing. So,
Right.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but okay, and then the process at the end is not curing. That's actually that's
Adju
different.
that's adjudicating. That's
Uh,
adjudicating, deciding, whether someone voted for 3 or 4 people. I mean, we had a big dispute years ago, um, about a ballot where and this was one of those elections that came down to 2 or 3 votes,
mhm,
and some people had written in a write-in name but hadn't filled in the box. Now, I
mhm,
can tell you, state law says that if you write in the name, that counts as the vote, whether or not the box next to the write-in line is filled in. Now, that's what state law
mhm.
is, no question about that. But I didn't know that back then because I was way down in the weeds. So I told my committee back then, this is again back when we were adjudicating ballots by hand, in the in-person voting years. I said, look, I think the state law says this, but I have a citation, and we didn't have computers where I could look it up. That night, this is like at midnight, we're counting the ballots by hand, um, and, in the room next to the village office. And the committee wanted to make sure, and we couldn't certify the election that night until we got a hold of our attorney, Ron Bolt, and he was able to find that the subsection 83 in the state regs that said that you don't need to have the box filled in, that it counts as a vote even if just his name is there.
All right.
You know, but I mean that's the kind of thing that we now know because it happened, right? Jack Swain, you're looking like this is way too in the weeds for me. Am I reading your facial expression wrong?
No, I was just reading through the agenda.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Anything else on the actual mechanics for the 21st?
Can you so what time does it start?
Starts at
Seven.
7. And we
Okay.
did that partly, I made it that because I wanted you to be able to be there for that first 20 minutes or half hour before you actually tuck your kids in bed at 7:30. So I'm hoping you can be there from 7 to 7:15 or 7:20 at least. And then we can call you at the end of the process when they've run all the machine ballot counting and they have a handful of ballots that the machine, basically spit out and because machine couldn't read it. And that's our second adjudication session. And again, that's one where I think, you know, it's really important that we all be there if possible.
But excuse me, Marty, is this going to be in the office? You want us to be physically present in the
Zoom.
Oh
office, or
no,
is it
no,
on
it's
Zoom? No,
all on Zoom,
it's
all on Zoom,
Zoom.
all on
Okay,
Zoom.
fine. All right.
They're in an office up in New Jersey and we can
Right.
see everything they're doing.
Exactly. Okay.
Now this is all Zoom, but again, having five sets of eyes
Mhm.
on that, on both of those adjudication sessions, I think is important. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Anything else on the 21st?
I'll probably be putting the kids down from 7 to 7:30, but I can listen in. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
If you can get to if they have anything where we have a question, I can call you, say, Jack, can you go look at your screen? You'll be able to do that?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Have your
And
screen
then
near you.
yeah, and then once they're down at 7:30, 7:45, I can be online for as long as needed.
Yeah, that you don't need to unless you want to watch the machines go ka-chunka, 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 right? We just need you to come back like probably 8:15, 8:30, depends on the number of ballots to be counted. Generally takes about an hour. Once we tell them to go ahead and open the privacy envelopes and they flatten out the ballots, they start running through the machines. Um,
Cool.
and the end, they give us like these tapes. They have these tapes that come out from the machine that show by precinct, because we have 5 precincts, because we have 5 different candidates that are different candidate orders. Do you all understand the precinct issue?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Everybody got that? Okay. If not, give me a call later. I'll tell you about it. But so I think we're set for the 21st. The committee report for the May 14th council meeting, they're doing the council meeting early on the 14th rather than the third Thursday, second Thursday, which means that we need to get that drafted to you, and I can do that this week and hopefully have it to you by Friday, so that Michael Silliman can have it by Friday, because the 14th is next week.
Yes,
Yep. Thursday.
So I will get you a draft on our committee report, which will in fact summarize the delay issues and what we've done as well as stuff. So, I've been trying to keep our committee reports only a page long, and I don't think this one will be more than a page. My only question for you there is, should we include a copy of the delay procedures that we approved tonight? That's an attachment to our committee report. Up to you guys.
Yeah. You're the standard operating procedure on the
Yeah,
partial
yeah.
delay. Yeah, I don't see any problem with that. Will
No.
you also have the outcome of May 5th?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll know that as soon as
Mhm.
May 5th is over. I mean,
Right.
what'll happen after May 5th is that I will send Nikki at Electech, the list of, any new voters and any replacement ballots are needed. So we'll give them two lists in writing. We're required to put all election instructions in writing, which we will. And I'll CC the village manager, Michael Silliman. You'll see a copy of that. And everybody on the committee will see that. And Nikki said that Electech will be there to send out the replacement ballots and any new voters' ballots on Thursday morning. So we just need to get that stuff to Electech on Wednesday, which we will. Okay. Any other questions on this process? I mean, this is the mechanics. This is how, we make this happen. And, a lot of it people never even know about unless you actually worked an election. You'd have no idea most of this is going on. But I will get you a draft committee report ASAP. All right, so that's number 6. And number 7, any other issues? Going once, going twice. Any other questions about the election process?
We're going to have stickers for people who cast their ballots tomorrow.
Yes, I voted stickers, and
Okay.
Jack's kids can hand them out. They will have a job to do.
Okay.
Love that.
That's nice.
Yeah. And we also have flags, and we ask for tape so we can tape up the flags. The kids can help with a lot. If you get there at 4:45 with the kids, Jack, you could help tape up the flags. I mean, there's lots of stuff that they could do.
I have a company board meeting that I'm already leaving early from tomorrow. I'm
Oh,
sorry. Naomi's gonna come over and watch the kids, so I can pick them up early and then attend the board meeting and then get there by 5.
okay. Do what you can. Bring them when you can. And again, it'll be fun to have them. And
Sorry,
uh,
it's a really
yeah,
It's a
unfortunate
busy day.
confluence of events with that, our quarterly board meeting and Tally's event
yeah.
and dearth of
Life
babysitters.
life happens. We've all juggled. Jack, that's what parenthood is about. It's all juggling. And guess what? I hate to tell you, but the next 20 years are going to be more of the same. Wait till you get to high school and you're all doing sports, and you have 14 different sports teams you need to be at in a week.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can look forward to that. I'm just telling you, this is part of the fun of parenting is that you really get good at multitasking and you really get good at juggling. So I used to joke that I could be in the circus. I
Yeah,
could juggle.
and
Yeah.
apologizing, it seems.
No need for that. We all understand. Most of us been there. So, and your kids are absolutely delightful. Um, Anything else? Any other election issues?
No.
Okay, we have no resident
None.
comments and suggestions. Arthur, Alexa, do you have anything that you would like to say?
No, nothing from me.
Not,
Alexa,
not, thank you. Thank you
say
for
again.
all of your,
I missed you. Say
thank
again.
you for all of your work. So that's all I need to say today.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Committee assignments, I think we don't need to go through because it's really clear. The only real committee assignment is to show up and for me to get you a draft of our committee report. I think that's all we really have. And let's have a motion to adjourn.
Well, there was one other one. You wanted the EC homework was to send you any comments about the election forum that we may have had.
Right. Thank you.
Right.
Good catch. Good catch. Elizabeth, you are
Okay.
so good. Thank you. Yeah, that's a
Well,
homework assignment too. That's an assignment.
okay. All
So
right.
jot that down. And again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for doing the minutes
Oh,
all this
sure.
year. It's just been
Oh,
great.
yes.
And
Okay.
all right, now I'm calling for a motion to adjourn. Would someone please so move?
Motion
I'll
to
move
adjourn.
to adjourn.
A
Second.
second? Right. All right. All in
Good
favor,
night,
please
everyone. Thank
say
you.
aye.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good night.